Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cropper here. I did a video earlier this afternoon, and then I went to work and I said, what happened in that video? What went on there? Did I destroy game theory? Or did I destroy the science show channel's depiction of game theory? And so then I got home and I found a couple comments. Oligarch Slayer has left a couple comments which were to the objectivist pages. What is it? Objectivistanswers.com, and the other one is Atlas Society, I believe. Pardon me. So, is game theory a valid approach? And that's the question on this is Objectivist Answers. Game theory seems to set up a moral versus practical dichotomy. Now, when I read that, a light went on. I said, yes, that's exactly what we found, because every situation we looked at, I said, well, what are the views of the people? So you just think you're going to make a practical analysis of the situation, forgetting their morals, right? And if you plug their morals in, it's a totally different situation. So what are you really learning? What have you learned? Now, maybe I'll read a bit more, but I just wanted to say I do think that there are valid applications possibly to game theory. Now, I read up through all these things, and I cannot. These people are asking for, is there a valid approach? Are there examples? Is there a time when this is used? What prompted my question is all examples I have found have been contrived in unlikely situations, right? And the person explains and explains. He says the prisoner's dilemma is a bit of a red herring. This is due in part to the fact that game theory typically analyzes games with respect to a minimum maximum strategy. It's a very abstract thing, blah, blah, blah. Goes on and on, but here's when it finally, at the bottom, at the end here, he finally said something that I said, okay, maybe then. If you can find a situation so strictured that plugging in the variables of reality, that is, isn't really going to change your picture. You can get a theoretical picture of these things acting, and in reality, they would be very close to that. And they actually finally gave an example of it, which I wasn't expecting. I was waiting for a real example. This is a real example. It's warships. It's F-22 Raptor fighter planes, because fighter planes, they're not gonna take cognizance of their pilot. The pilot doesn't matter in this situation. The pilot is there to preserve his plane and destroy the other guy's plane, right? And so game theory would be able to analyze things like F-22 Raptor tactics, the tactics of warships, because any admiral on any ship is going to try to preserve his ship and damage as many of the enemies as possible, and so on. So finally, in military stuff, we finally see a possible application of game theory, in my opinion, in my humble opinion. Now, that being the case, could you learn stuff about it elsewhere? I don't know. I've just seen objectivists wringing their hands about it for 2 pages, and I don't see any other applications. The prisoner dilemma is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire life. So, the other page, I'll just read it quick because I thought it was quite succinct, but it didn't have an example of what was going on. Let's see. Question. It didn't have an example. This one doesn't have an example of what's going on. The other one gave us the military examples. This one doesn't. Question. The recent release of A Beautiful Mind raises questions regarding the efficacy of the work done by Nobel laureate John Nash. Now, efficacy is from the root word effect, or to have some effect. Okay? And if the work that you do has no relation to reality, that it can ever have an effect on anything. So efficacy means to have a relation to reality. Okay? So that's why an objectivist would use such a very well chosen word in this situation. Their work involved the analysis of equilibria in the theory of non-cooperative games. Do you know of any written analysis of this work from an objectivist perspective? Answer. As such, Nash's contribution to non-cooperative game theory were a major breakthrough in the formal analysis of strategic interaction. Any interaction among individuals is fundamentally non-cooperative because each person's interests are distinct and each person decides as an individual. You see, that's why I said the warplanes and the warships is a very instructive example, because plugging in the individual person into your regular game theory questions, like who pays for dinner, well, the reason we all came to dinner was because we wanted to have dinner with Joe, because he's such a funny guy. And we all know Joe's broke as shit. He's never had a job in his life. So of course we're all going to split Joe's bill, or somebody here is going to pick up his bill or part of it, right? So you plug in the individuals, and then you got a mess. Your game theory's gone. But you plug in the warships and the admirals on the warships and the fighter pilots in your airplanes, and you still have airplanes and warships trying to destroy each other. So I think that is a valid application. Now, I'm not saying there are not other valid applications. I'm not saying that that's the only valid application or the only possible application. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm simply saying that I am now finally able to conceive of an application for game theory. That's the only claim I can make right now. Okay. Even cooperation is non-cooperative in this sense. Nash's equilibrium concept, which is essentially that if one seeks to maximize one's benefit, one should choose based on how one expects other parties to react. If that's the generalization he made, then it's a valid field. If it's as simple as that you should take other people into consideration when you act, then that's sort of like it would take a modern person, a mathematician, to make that sentence and think he had discovered something. But okay. It's probably stuff that was common sense 100 years before. Alright, certain conclusions from simplified game models, of which the most notorious has been the Prisoner's Dilemma one-shot game, have been abused by social philosophers and political scientists to advocate collectivism of various types. Okay, good. That's what I has been seeing. That's what I have been seeing. And that's what I keep hearing. And that's why I said, is this nonsense or what? Is game theory that? No, game theory must have come from before that, and that's just modern people doing their stupid. But a game is only as good as the model it represents, and Nash's work is not at fault for providing the tool that has been abused. So Nash's work is just a tool. So see, that one was good, that's good, but that one was less useful to me than the other page. And the other page is objectivistanswers.com. Is game theory a valid approach? Now, I think I've said what I need to say. I would just sort of be hashing extra stuff and boring you. You can go look up the comments if you want. There we go. Mr. Cropper has closed his investigation of game theory. He believes it is possibly valid under extremely strictly defined situations. Maybe even so limited as to be only applicable to impersonal things, like airplanes and warships, possibly. And then maybe the use of nuclear weapons or something like this. So game theory seems to have applications. Mr. Cropper gives his approval. I'm not going to question the Army if they think that they've found tactics using game theory, because as an abstract set of systems, coming up with different ways of looking at interactions as an abstract set of systems could give you insights that you wouldn't otherwise try to find. Now, the variables you would look at would be so strange if you were looking at like a dinner party, like maybe we should just kill Joe and take his money and all of us will pay less, you know? Like in war, that might be a reasonable thing to do, but if you're splitting up the check at a dinner party, the strictures of how you define it get blown out of the water when you bring people's morals into it. And you may come up with a solution, and then you bring the solution over to the people sitting at the dinner table, and they'll just throw your solution out. They'll say, well, that's a dumb solution because we know Joe doesn't have any money, or we know Joe just won the lottery. Everybody knows we're not paying for this mill, you idiot. Don't bring your stupid game theory solutions over here. We know Joe is going to pay. So, but applicable to war, very possibly. Now, I can't go on further because I think I've said what I need to say, and if I keep going, I'll figure out something else to say. So, patronize me if you like what I'm doing. Investigating heavy-hitting stuff, right? Debating. Gosh, what was that? That Victor debate? That was a disaster. Just because of the moderator. It was really the moderator's fault. I'm investigating heavy stuff. I'm defending Ayn Rand. I'm doing interviews, and I'm doing the intellectual thing, and I'm on BitChute, and I'm one of the early intellectuals on BitChute, I'm told. So, support Mr. Cropper. Go to Patreon and support Mr. Cropper. Thank you.